Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné and these are the headlines. Series of attacks in Mali. A military camp is attacked a day after more than 60 people are killed in various assaults. The economic fallout of the coup in Niger, now under sanctions, also impact neighbouring country Nigeria. We'll hear from some traders in Kano. And no telephone and no internet in most of Darfur because of the war. So people are now resorting to the good old pen and paper with a messenger. And we start in Mali. A military camp in the Gao region was attacked this Friday, a day after two separate assaults which killed 64 people. The country has declared 3 days of national mourning. The Islamic State group has doubled its territory in the last year, according to the United Nations. Antonia Carrigan reports.
After gunfire and 2 car bombs at an army base in the Gao region of Mali on Friday, the military are calling it a suicide attack. An al-Qaeda-affiliated group has claimed responsibility. This the day after the same group was blamed for 2 other attacks, a raid on a military position also in the Gao region and an assault on a riverboat in Gorma Rarus, just outside Timbuktu. Of the many dozens of victims on Thursday, the vast majority were civilians. Elected officials in Gao told the press that the army staged a counter-offensive to Thursday's attack, in which they neutralised around 50 so-called terrorists. This less than a month after jihadists encircled Timbuktu, imposing a blockade which has led to food shortages and a spike in prices, a situation reminiscent of 2012, when jihadist rebels gained control of the city along with much of northern Mali. French-led intervention in the years that followed successfully unseated jihadist rule in the north, but the rebels remained active. Since the coup d'etat in 2020, the situation has once again deteriorated, and the Islamic State group has doubled its territory in Mali in the last year, according to the United Nations.
The African Union looks set to become the newest member of the G20. The bloc's members are gathered for a summit in India, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi argued that developing nations need a greater say in global decision-making. The proposal has won backing from Washington, and today the European Union said it would also back the move. And Nigeria is also hoping to join the G20 despite its economic hardship. After more than a month of sanctions against its neighbour Niger, the impact is also felt across the country, including in Kano, an economic hub where traders from all over the Sahel. Our correspondent Oshinwe Osundu reports.
Dawano market in Kano, Nigeria is the largest cereal market in Africa. Alhaji Ibrahim has recently rendered 3/4 of his staff redundant. Before the border closure with Niger, some 50 handlers were preparing tons of bags of beans every day. But the measure have this major traders' business overnight.
Honestly, we're all unhappy, both our customers and us, the suppliers. We can't supply goods until we've received given orders, and they can't make profit until we deliver. So we're all stuck.
West Africa bloc ECOWAS slapped a series of sanctions on Niger following a July 26th coup. Abuchi Ume is a Nigerian wholesaler of household electrical appliances. For over 5 years, more than 40% of his business has been in Chad and Niger. The embargo has had a huge impact on his regional sales. He fears that the standoff between ECOWAS and the junta in Niamey will drag on.
Even though I'm sure we can survive without Niger, but we do better with Niger. Because no business would love to lose 30% of their customer. It's big. It's something that you would not like to lose.
These 2 trucks have been stuck on the outskirts of Kano for several weeks. The drivers are supposed to deliver their cargo to the south of Niger, in the Zidar and Darfur regions, mainly non-perishable goods, already paid for by impatient Nigerian customers on the other side of the border.
We're stranded. We're looking for a way to leave, but we can't. So we have no choice but to stay. It's better than getting to the border, where things are even worse.
Nigerians have suffered setbacks, the Naira crisis, then the end of the fuel subsidy, and now the Niger border closure could be the last straw for many traders in Kano. making survival difficult for tens of thousands of small businesses in this economic hub of northern Nigeria.
2 years ago, Mamadi Doumbouya toppled Alpha Condé's regime in Guinea. The military leader had pledged to return power to civilians by the end of 2024. But the prospect of holding new elections seems a long way off. Malik Diakité and Sira Thierry report from Conakry.
Back in opposition since the fall of their leader, Alpha Condé, the rally of the Guinean People Party, in power between 2010 and 2021, had initially engaged in talks with the ruling junta. But today, some of its leaders are under investigation and dialogue has stalled.
There's a law in Guinea that says that elections are to be organised by the Independent Commission. But now we learned it will be the Ministry of Territorial Administration. The electoral codes also needs to be reviewed, and the constitution too. But all of these debates take place behind closed doors, making it difficult for us to follow.
Several political organizations keen to see the party return to negotiations want to engage with the military directly, with talks facilitated by regional bloc ECOWAS. The minister in charge of organizing eventual elections says he'll engage with all sides.
Some party leaders feel that the political parties they are in charge of are linked to them personally. So when they have a problem with the law, the party has a problem with the law. When they have health problems, the party has health problems. Unfortunately, this is what we're dealing with.
Some observers are clear that the ruling military has to do more to restore a climate of trust as soon as possible.
The risk is huge, because it's like slipping back into a cycle of violence that we can't control, and that could take us in any direction.
The junta-led government has pledged to organize elections by the end of 2024, but some here doubt the vote will go ahead as promised.
And to Uganda, from now on, all visitors will have to go through security checks before entering churches or mosques, a directive by President Yoweri Museveni, prompted by the threat of terrorism. In a televised speech yesterday, he accused the ADF of planning a new wave of attacks. Our regional correspondent, Clément Di Roma, has more.
Ugandans must now present an ID before entering mosques and churches following President Museveni directives. Museveni recently announced the arrest of 7 suspected terrorists in Kampala. Intelligence indicated potential attacks on a cathedral and other places of worship during that weekend, but the capital's police said these were successfully prevented. According to the investigators, the suspects are linked to the ADF, an Islamist rebel group operating near the Ugandan border in the DR Congo. In June, this militia carried out a devastating attack at a school along the border, resulting in the death of 42, mostly children, marking the deadliest attack in Uganda since the 2010 Kampala bombings, which claim 76 lives. Uganda initiated Operation Shuja in 2021, collaborating with the Congolese army. Yoweri Museveni reported on Thursday that his forces had eliminated over 560 rebels and rescued 200 abductees. Despite these intensified security efforts, Museveni reassured the public not to fear the rebels, emphasizing his army's commitment to defeating them.
Chad will receive $340 million in new financing from the World Bank, 90 million of which will help the country to respond to the influx of refugees fleeing conflict in neighbouring Sudan. And since the start of the fighting mid-April, telephone and internet have been cut off there in most of the Darfur region. People are now resorting to something of the past, handwritten letters. Caroline Lamboli explains.
Home is less than 3 hours away, but the only way for Ahmed to get in touch with loved ones he left behind in Niala is to pen a handwritten message. Niala is one of Sudan's most populated cities. Nearly 5 months into the war, it's still in the grips of intense fighting between the military and the RSF paramilitary group.
Even at the start of the fighting, it was hard to get in touch with people in other neighbourhoods inside Niala. I was able to call home for 5 or 6 seconds before the line cut off. Now you wait a week for a letter to arrive. and you can't be sure whether it'll get there. And if it does, there's no guarantee that they can send one back.
The road to Niala and back is treacherous, and the messengers can't always make it. The fighting has taken a toll on the infrastructure in the city, including its water, phone, and electricity networks.
After telecommunication services were cut off between East Darfur and South Darfur, we started getting a lot of letters and messages written by relatives of residents. So we sent drivers to deliver these messages, and usually the recipient immediately writes a response and hands it back to the driver before he leaves.
Though tens of thousands of people remain trapped in Niala, which is the capital of South Darfur, many others have fled. Over 10 days alone during the month of August, up to 50,000 people fled the violence in the city, according to the UN. Just last week, 39 civilians, most of them women and children, were reportedly killed in shelling on their homes, according to witness reports and medics in the city.
And that's it for this edition. Thank you for watching Eye on Africa.